All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's Stock Market Outlook video. We've got a lot to cover. We're going to walk through the market indexes, leading themes, and leading stocks. And there's a whole bunch of stocks to talk about, so make sure you stick around till the end. We've got a lot of potential setups going into the next week that I'm excited to cover. First things first, this is brought to you by the Trader's Handbook. This is my debut book that we published here at Traderline. That's coming out May 27th. It's basically 12 chapters to build a trading system. Really excited about it. Really excited to get it into your hands. And there's a video linked below that kind of walks through what's inside the book, all of that, the story behind the book. But to pick up your copy, the link should be popping up right now, as well as down below in the description. With that said, let's go ahead and start with the QQQ. We've had quite a rally here off the lows. We've bounced about 20% already, which is significant. And it seems like this is obviously a meaningful low. We also had a higher low here that's formed. And let's kind of take a step back and talk about the overall correction. This is really where we reinvigorated the downtrend. We had been in a choppy, more negative market in here, tough to make progress. You had the DeepSeek gap down news, but the correction really got underway and accelerated here to the downside on this day right here, February 21st. Once you break below the 21 EMA, my market cycle pretty much turns off. So I'm in cash or taking, much more defensive stance. And, that helps avoid all the corrective activity all the way down to this reversal extension down here. We had a potential rally that was forming out here, but that again broke back below the 21 EMA, broke back below the key level that we'd been respecting. And then with this gap, it was definitely out of favor. And that helps you avoid, again, this significant pullback, an additional 10% from this level by respecting that 21 EMA downside reversal. And even if you had try positions here in this area, March 24th, Tesla, I think, broke out or broke above a range pivot. I think Reddit did as well. Even if you had entered those names, you would have gotten stopped out likely on this day or definitely on this day as well. Again, protecting yourself from this downside. So what's really important during a correction is to follow your rules, honor your stops, and really know when your style is basically in favor. And for me, that's not until we start building above the 21 EMA. Back in this area is the perfect example. And, this helps avoid all this chop and corrective action and protect your account, protect your finances, and also protect your mental capital, your confidence as well. But regardless, gap down, reinvigorate downtrend. We had the announcement of the tariffs on this day. That's what led to this catalyst. And then we had the potential easement of them, the pause that was, announced on this day that kind of confirmed a potential rally attempt. And then we had a very, textbook higher low that forms and reconfirmation up with a gap up. And that's kind of where we are at this point. This past week, obviously, we had an additional move up down into the 50 SMA key level, as well as this key level right here. There's some confidence here, the potential for a reversal down and maybe another leg down. But instead here, we shook off some bad news and had a nice upside reversal, fall through to the upside with a nice gap, and then held that gap and is now, right knocking on the door of the 200 SMA. So in very short time, in short order, that's kind of what's going on. And really, if you're following a market cycle system, you would have gotten out back in this area and likely started getting aggressive again in this area as we popped back above the 21 EMA, maybe trying some stuff up here and getting stopped out, but that's the name of the game. You just kind of see and use a dimmer switch and see what the market conditions are and adapt to market feedback and honor your market cycle system. Definitely, there's been some opportunities here. We'll run through again a lot of the market leaders, PLTR, Crowd. These are names that I mentioned throughout, their moves in the Trade Lab report, which again is linked down below in the description if you're not already a member. Right now we're again at a potential key level. We've rallied quite a bit over the past 9 days. Again, since this low, we're up about 15%. We're due for a potential pause, but at the beginning of, market uptrends, we sometimes keep going further than anybody expects. And what seems extended can always get more so, both to the downside and to the upside, as we've seen in the strongest rallies, and to the downside, as we've seen, during these corrections. So we'll see what happens. This is a key level. Whenever something is extended into a potential resistance area, and this is the 200 SMA, as well as this key turning point, I'm expecting a pause. And if it doesn't happen, that's fine. I've got my positions and they're listening to my trading rules, but expecting them knows what to kind of set your expectations and allows you to, navigate the waters how you should be. while managing risk, of course. So let's go ahead and dive into the IWM as well. This shows a pretty similar story, popping above this key level, popping above the 50 SMA, which we've been down below since really this point right here in, again, late Feb. And we'll see if we can start a meaningful trend to the upside. This has been underperforming really since November and is just back above that still declining moving average. So we'll see if we move up and then back test it and let that 50 SMA kind of flatten and build out right there. Looking at IBIT as a crypto proxy, this is definitely leading. You can see nice strong trend here and is getting closer to those all-time highs. But again, we're a little bit short-term stretch to the upside. I love to see a pullback into the 10 EMA, respect to the upside, letting that 21 EMA catch up even if we consolidate a few, for a few weeks here, and then reconfirm to the upside. But we're in a trend, nothing's wrong. And even a test of the 10 EMA, if it respects that, is completely normal during that trend. So we'll have to see what happens. But, I take this as a good sign for growth stock assets because Bitcoin and crypto is really just a risk on and risk off type instrument. So this is a good sign for growth stocks and basically more healthy risk appetites. Looking at some key mega caps. Meta, I really like how it had a positive expectation breaker because yesterday's close was negative and we gapped up and held and acted well off the 200 SMA as well. So good to be back above that level and, back above that 50 SMA as well. We'll see how this acts. There definitely is some overhead here and there's a pretty sharp rally compared to the downtrend. So I would expect some back and fill here as this builds out. But overall, good to see it back above those moving averages. NVIDIA, let's bring up that name. This has been underperforming really since November, but again, above that 50 SMA, kind of a similar spot to Meta, but it's still below that 200 SMA. So still potentially, in a stage for a downtrend, and it really has to prove itself right at this level, the 50 SMA, as well as lining up with this pivot right here. Tesla, this is one of my focuses recently over the past week and definitely also into next week as well. You've got the confluence of this pivot level as well as the 200 SMA. We're building a short-term range here. We've got earnings out of the way, so we'll see if we can pop through here and reconfirm just like we did on this bar right here. It was definitely actionable in this area, and we'll see what happens if we can pop through that range and really start an uptrend. You do have some overhead. This is down still about 40% from highs, so we'll have to see what happens. Microsoft, good to get the gap up and nice to see it hold today as well. But just want to see this build out and kind of become a little bit more symmetrical in terms of the basing structure and pullback that we did have. Google, a little bit weaker above the 50 SMA, but also below that 200 SMA. So we'll see if we can approach that and build above it. Amazon, again, up against that 50 SMA, good to see it approach that, but we'll have to see it live above that and also get above that 200 SMA. And just looking at this base, what would be normal? What would be normal constructive behavior? It would be, maybe rallying to the 200 SMA, back and fill, higher low, back and fill, higher low, finally build above it, maybe retest it to the downside, pull back to it, find support there, and then rally up. And that's going to take a few weeks to really build up as you would expect charts to build out. Charts can heal a lot faster than anybody believes, but things do take time if they are, this far off all-time highs. Apple, bringing up that chart, is a little bit worse looking, below the short-term moving averages, and we'll see if this can build out again. Really, the basing and corrective behavior started in December of 2024 when the Fed kind of changed their tune right here. Obviously, now the overarching fundamental factor is more the tariffs that we care about, but we'll see if this can heal up and start an uptrend as well. But at least good to see them get above their 50 SMAs and get above their short-term moving averages as well. Looking at the themes, for a while, there wasn't much going on except gold miners, biotech as well. But over the past few weeks, we've definitely seen software act well. We've seen genomics continue to act well, growth stocks in general act better. And just over here, this is the theme tracker in DeFi. There's a preset that kind of tracks different themes in the market. Here is the 1 month basis. So what are the strongest themes over the past month? Software, genomics, blockchain, aerospace, technology, and the miners are still up there. Good to see semiconductors participating and growth stocks in general doing all right. But on a 1 day basis, you can see the plots right here as well. But on a 1 week basis, social media popping up, which is nice. Airlines, China, internet, software up there as well. So software is kind of the key theme for me in terms of, a growth stock area of focus. PLTR, Duolingo today popped off. We'll take a look at that chart. But, there's a lot of promising names in there. AI related as well, AI applications. So we'll have to see how those act going forward. But there's a good quick view of the themes. You know, people always ask me, how do you spot rotation? How do you find the leading themes? Just setting up this theme tracker here in DeepView allows you to plot, and basically the existing themes will be at the top right here on a 1 month basis. And you want to track this day to day and see the developing themes over here on the 1 day view. So that's a quick look at the themes. Let's get into some stocks now, and let's open up my growth universe here and open that up. So first things first, you know, you've got your key leaders here. PLTR is probably the strongest one, but the big thing here is if you hover over this and this flag is showing up because earnings is coming up, we've got that built into DeepView. Earnings are coming up on Monday the 5th, and we're rallying into that earnings report. We're right at this key level. So we could either reverse hard or we could gap and go out of this base. But this is definitely one of the strongest leaders. This was kind of the actionable spot in here, also against the 21 EMA back in this range. I've been covering this since the reversal extension down here and acting really nicely. If you've got a cushion, you know, at least, you know, you've got 24% cushion if you entered right in this area versus the 21 EMA, you've got a little bit more. And you can handle that earnings report, but you don't want to just go in and blindly buy because you think they're going to do well. If you don't have a cushion, you don't have a reason to hold. Moving on, CrowdStrike also acting well. This is another one I've been focused on. Hood reported earnings, downside reversal yesterday after earnings, but now inside day, and we'll see how things act going forward. But, you know, another name to watch in this space, and watching to see it break out through this pivot. This is definitely a focus along with Tesla early into next week. Uber, incredibly strong. If we bring up that chart, breaking out of this base, and let's go to a weekly view. This is a nice long base that started back in February of 2024, so more than a year at this point, and we'll see if we can start and restart that stage 2 uptrend. Netflix, very strong base breakout. This kind of led everything up. Again, early buy points through consolidation pivots, range breakouts. You had tightness here as well that reconfirmed higher. RMV helps you spot that tightness right here. It goes near zero during those consolidations, and it's just acting phenomenally since. A little bit of a slower mover now, though its ADR now is 3.4%, and it's made a move of about 20% in a few weeks. So, you know, don't want to say it's too slow, but, you know, a very strong stock and a great gauge of risk appetite. And just taking a step back, we've got a lot of earnings coming up next week and the week after. How the majority of stocks act after earnings will be a great gauge of the risk appetite of institutions. If we see a lot of gap and goes, you know, Duolingo today, if we bring up that chart right here, up 20%. Let me actually click that chart here, up 20%. If we see a lot of these, that's a great sign, especially if these, you know, build out, reconfirm higher and begin trending. That's a fantastic sign for the market. But if we see a lot of gap downs and negative reactions, or they pop up like this and then just reverse and sell off hard, that would suggest we'll probably need a lot more time, or even, you know, just more time in this correction, and likely we'll have more of a leg down. But risk appetite is, you know, earnings reports and their reactions, because that's really what matters, the reactions, not what the actual numbers are. That's a great gauge of risk appetite, and that's something I learned from Jim Ropel. So definitely something to look out for there. And we've got a lot of great ones coming up. TEM, I'm really interested in this young IPO. It just had its 200 SMA show up, which is something I learned from Kathy Donnelly. Often when the 200 SMA just shows up, that's kind of a sign technically, or just time-wise, that a stock is mature enough to make a sustainable move to the upside, a more institutional advanced phase versus, you know, short-term trends and pops. So we'll see if this can gap and go on earnings. Had a really nice move today here, and basically formed a higher low here. And we'll see if it can gap and go and basically break out of this base that started back in August of 2024. Also, some other recent IPOs worth watching. Titan, I talked about this substantially in the Trade Lab right in this area before this breakout. Now is pulled back to the base pivot and acting well. I'd like to see this build out a little bit more. But, you know, just watching for it to reconfirm to the upside and start more of an advance here. RBRK, let me bring up that chart if I actually have it. Yep, right there. This is a one that, you know, similarly had a really nice move since IPO. It's a little bit longer in terms of more mature. Now it's had another kind of overall basing structure. CrowdStrike is probably the leader, but RBRK definitely in my focus. but it's just kind of been rallying higher every single day. So I'd love to see a pullback, a handle form before we start to break out of, through this base pivot right here. But we'll see what actually happens into the coming weeks. Let's see if there's other names I really want to highlight. Reddit had a little bit of a disappointing reaction to earnings here. We'll see if this can build out. This does have more overhead supply. Disappointing because it was a great trender here and probably my best trade of last year back in this area. But we'll see if it can set up again and hold here and then pop back through the moving averages. Let's see if there's any other names I really wanted to highlight here. Just IPOs in general, and this is another kind of sign of positive risk appetite, is CRWV acting phenomenally. Nice tight range here. Again, RMV going to 0 and then pops up and starting to move up the right-hand side of the IPO base. So we'll see if we can tighten up again, set up another opportunity before it breaks out of this pivot, and see if this can make a nice move here for us. This is a very fast mover. This is a rise of 54%. So not for the faint of hearted, and faster rules, faster entries, tighter stops, just tighter strict risk management, lower position sizes, all that's warranted in a name like this if you are trading it. MCR did want to bring up just trending beautifully. You do have, potential resistance right here, and just riding the trend into this area of congestion. So we'll see if we need a pause here, pull back to the 10 EMA, 21 EMA. I think that would be something you'd want to look for an entry here. I'll be scouting to see if there's a low risk entry somewhere in there. But overall, things are still shaping up. You've got these names that are acting really nicely. PLTR, Crowd, Spot as well. This is one I've been following closely. Had a lower risk buy point here. And then after earnings, reconfirmation upwards, tight day, and then classic reconfirmation upwards. So, names are acting well. More and more are shaping up. Let me know your thoughts down below on, this market. What are you trading right now? What are you in? How exposed are you? And hopefully we can continue to see things rally, and hopefully we get a lot of gap and goes, in the coming days and weeks with earnings. So again, that'll be a key thing to watch next week. How do stocks act, especially PLCR? It's probably the most important growth stock right now in terms of risk appetite. And, we'll have to see what happens, but trending beautifully above the moving averages. And we'll see if it can, gap and go. It's a little bit short-term extended. If we do get a gap and go, it has to be, game-changing news. But we'll have to see what happens with that name. I think, like I said, it'll be a great gauge for the rest of the market in terms of how institutions are viewing whether we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to these tariffs and other news events like that, or we're in for a longer duration negative economic impact. Again, we don't have to predict. We just have to analyze stuff in real time, analyze the trends. And if stuff is above the moving averages, good to go. If we're breaking below the moving averages, false breakouts, downside reversals, that's when we want to be on guard and, protect ourselves so we avoid the worst of that corrective activity. But again, let me know your thoughts down below on the market, and hopefully you guys pick up your copy of the Trader's Handbook. Again, the link to that is in the description. Really proud of this resource that we've created. It's not just a book. We've also been doing webinars every single week that go along with this. And the link actually to the next one is down below in the description as well. And in addition to the webinars, by purchasing this book, you also unlock a lot of bonuses, including the market cycle model book, weekly charts model book, the sell rules model book, and one more model book that I can't think of right now, but the base breakouts model book. So in addition to the book itself, you're not just buying a book when you do that. Basically, if you send us your receipt, you'll unlock all those bonuses on launch week, and we'll have more information about how to do that later on, pretty close to that countdown week. So definitely recommend this. We send it over to a lot of market wizards, top traders, a lot of the folks who I've interviewed in the past and gotten outstanding reviews so far. We've shared a bunch on Twitter. We're going to share even more. And we're really happy about how it turns out. And we, first and foremost, we hope that it helps speed up people's learning curves and helps them prevent a lot of the mistakes that we made, that people we've talked to have made, and just helps, expand the general knowledge of trading to everybody. So hopefully you guys pick up your copy. And with that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.